Please subscribe to our channel, Pacific Front Untold, and be sure to leave a comment after watching a video.
The affidavits of John Van Almer, Albert Edward Alsop, James E. Orrell, Den W. Perns, and Floyd Crowder, and John Robert de Lara have painted a vivid portrait of Pootung assembly camp's hardships, from violence and starvation to public humiliation and military risks. Now, the testimony of Henry Francis Parks, a seasoned American businessman and owner of the Cathay American Company, brings a chilling new dimension to this history. Recorded in San Francisco in 1946, Parks' affidavit, sworn for the Judge Advocate General's Department, details the camp's vermin-infested, condemned warehouse, the meager rations that led to severe weight loss, and the relentless exposure to Allied bombing due to the camp's unmarked status amidst Japanese military installations. His account also humanizes the internees' struggle through anecdotes like the suspected Greyhound carcass and the kindness of a shell-shocked Japanese guard nicknamed Guadalcanal. As we transition to Part 6, Parks's narrative, shaped by his long residence in Shanghai, underscores the dire living conditions and life-threatening dangers faced by Pootung's internees, reinforcing the imperative to preserve their stories. Sworn in San Francisco, California in 1946, Henry Francis Parks' affidavit, documented for the War Crimes Office of the Judge Advocate General's Department, offers a harrowing account of life at Pootung Civilian Assembly Center. A U.S. citizen who ran a successful wholesale retail and insurance business in Shanghai since 1933, Parks describes the overcrowded, rat-infested tobacco warehouse, the inadequate medical care that led to preventable deaths, and the starvation diet that reduced his weight from 176 to 122 pounds. His testimony vividly recounts the camp's perilous location near Japanese naval headquarters and ammunition stores, exposing internees to constant bombing risks until white crosses were finally painted on the roofs in July 1945. Naming Commandant Cao Chia, likely Tsuchia, and the brutal Sergeant Ando, or Endo, Parks' account, presented in full below, also highlights moments of humanity, such as the aid from a compassionate guard. This testimony deepens our understanding of Pootung's inhumane conditions and strategic vulnerability. 9 SCWC 2749, State of California City and County of San Francisco. Henry Francis Parks, being duly sworn, deposes and says,
I am a citizen of the United States, and since June of 1933 have been sole owner of Cathay American Company, operating a wholesale retail and insurance business and connected enterprises in Shanghai, China. After the outbreak of hostilities, the Japanese military seized control of Shanghai, and ON 15, February 1943, I was interned in the Pootung Civilian Assembly Center at Pootung, across the river from the international settlement in Shanghai for the duration of the war, being released on or about 17 August 1945. The place of my internment was in a godown or warehouse, formerly the property of the British American Tobacco Company. This warehouse was situated in the center of a commercial and manufacturing area. It had been abandoned after condemnation by the Chinese civil authorities as being unfit for use. The camp was not marked in any way to indicate that it was an internee installation. The first Allied bombing of the area occurred in the month of June 1944, and thereafter consistently increased until it was intense in February and March 1945. The internees repeatedly begged permission to mark the buildings of the camp with white crosses or other means to identify it, so that it would not be bombed, as the Pootung area constituted a prime objective for Allied bombing. At first, the Japanese flatly refused to permit such marking of the buildings, and although we soon got their consent to mark them, they practiced an evading tactic, making it impossible to get paint and other necessary materials to mark the buildings. It was not until the 1st of July 1945 that we succeeded in getting white crosses on the roofs of the buildings in the compound. These were first put on with whitewash, which was prompt washed away by rain. Subsequently, we obtained paint. The buildings themselves were not directly bombed at any time. The Japanese, however, by their conduct, deliberately exposed the internees to the hazards of war. In the broadest sense, their refusal of our request, after it became apparent that Shanghai was to be subjected to bombing, to move us to another place where we would not be so exposed, was the main basis for our exposure. This warehouse was within a few hundred yards of Japanese naval headquarters and was surrounded by factories manufacturing machine gun parts, pistols, and other military material. The main shipping area, consisting of docks and anchorages, was within a half-mile of our camp. The Lunchong, godown, an even larger warehouse than our own, was situated to the east and southeast of the British American Tobacco Company warehouse across a 25-foot alley. In that warehouse, no more than 50 feet from where I was forced to live with 126 other American internees, the Japanese stored at least 2,053-gallon drums of gasoline and uncalculated truckloads of hand grenades, machine guns and parts and ammunition for small arms. These trucks loaded material into this warehouse day and night in the months of July and August 1945 while bombing was constantly going on. They quartered soldiers, 500 or more at a time, in the compound of Lunchong Warehouse, assertedly using it as a rest camp. Within 2 blocks of the internment camp, 6 anti-aircraft guns were installed. One was within 15 feet of the room which I occupied. The rest were in various positions surrounding the camp and within 100 yards. These gun positions were in plain sight of aerial attackers, and attempts were made to bomb them out. In fact, one was bombed out during an air raid. At the north end of the building and about 30 feet away from our mess hall, the Japanese military dug a long trench, blocking off the highway, and set up explosive mines in it and replaced the surface. These mines were removed by the Japanese after the surrender. Within a half-mile of the compound, moats and tank traps were set up. All of these efforts were done in an anticipated defense of Pootung area, which contained many installations vital to the Japanese. Strategically, it was obvious that any attack by the Allied on the Shanghai area would include an invasion which would necessarily bring the Allied troops into the Pootung area, in which event we would have been in the heat of the fighting for our camp, stood among objectives which would necessarily have been destroyed by the Allied forces. Only the surrender saved us from probable annihilation in the fighting. The man primarily responsible for the exposure of the civilian internees to these dangers and anticipated dangers was one, Sauchia, a Japanese consular official who was in direct charge and authority of the Pootung Civilian Assembly Center. His was the responsibility for the refusal to mark the buildings and the failure to remove the internees to a place of safety when it became apparent that bombings of Pootung industrial area were imminent. Unknown Japanese military and naval authorities were responsible for the defenses deliberately set up, in the storage of war material, and in the quartering of troops, making our camp the heart of a prime target area.